I don't know what happened between putting my foot on the ground and being horizontal. I don't even remember. Just my pride. I know, actually, I think I feel like I have this for a couple of days. I have my eating. Yeah, other than, I was so padded, I didn't hurt anything, just my neck. Whiplash.
Just your neck. That's enough. That's true. Oh, I can't. I gotta go.
Cold like everyone else in the city. Look at the show. How are you?
Yeah, it's damn warm.
Is this one of yours?
Yeah.
Boy, the colors have really.
The virtual enjoy this. I'm not recording it. We're like live streaming.
Like butter.
And is that a big?
I went ahead and bought one of those electric.
That's fine. You can see.
No, the stapler, the electric stapler. And now I've decided that I really don't like it. Just have an extra one.
For doing canvas?
Yeah,
Sure.
okay,
Yes.
okay. Because it's just taking up space in my house. I've never used it. I never used it. You know, I had all good thoughts.
Buy it from you.
Don't worry about it. It's money that was spent.
Yeah.
Then, so I'm not concerned. But I'll just get in touch with you. And if I forget, just, shoot me a text. That would be great.
Okay.
Good.
Look forward to the top.
I'll be glad to have
Put to good use.
a home for it.
Yeah. Something to look forward to.
Hey, Patty.
By the name of Roxy. Do you know Roxy? Yeah. She made this, and I went with my husband to some show, and she was wearing it. And Robert asked if we could buy that, and she took it off.
And told it to you.
Yeah.
Wow. That happened to me once with the stars.
The-
This lady bought one of my scars and she wanted another one and she didn't like anyone except the one I had on my neck.
Well,
So
actually, that would look really nice with this, wouldn't it?
Yeah, the reds make nice color.
I have some more of these scars that came from Israel.
See, is yours
It's
the
really beautiful.
Mine is
How
still-
trading being a scarf like this, the electric.
Sure.
Yours is pretty lovely.
Yeah.
My blank's from Israel too. But I printed it with my tree.
You doing this play?
I printed it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the same. Yours feels softer than mine. It's, it is
More
wool.
stiff.
It is wool, but it's from, this was from, but
Yours
yours
feels
just,
soft.
oh, it is the same scarf.
It is the same exact scar.
Wonder if I just steamed my top. Or did you use alum?
No, just vinegar. So you
I
have.
don't, no, I think I'm, well, I don't know, the way that it's yellow, I wonder if I did have
I think
it.
alum, you must have had alum because it's very yellow.
Yeah. I don't remember. I usually don't use it if I have vinegars in it.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't know. I steam so much, I don't know. What up?
Yeah.
I'd have to go through my notes.
I only use the alum if I'm going to dye.
I feel like I didn't if it was wool. I would have just done it. I don't know. Who knows? Who knows? They do whatever they want to do.
It's amazing. Yeah, I could get one close to this. It really won't be exactly
Well, I want one exactly like
Oh,
that.
yeah.
I have a whole coat that is printed this beautiful.
Really?
Almost wore it, but she didn't. That's my 30 to 50 temperature.
So often the colors are not, ours are not as bright.
Molly's coming. Molly's coming. How are you, Betty?
I was saving Barbara's seat. She said.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I have my stepdaughter. Oh, I don't know if I realized that you were 14. Yeah, Mexico. Which is in the mountains somewhere.
I've heard of it. Yeah, I couldn't point to it. But
Yeah.
you know, these names come by. And go,
Well, it's northeast of Tucson. No, that's Arizona.
northeast of Texas.
Yes, that's right.
That's right. I think I've been through it.
And it's near a town.
Yeah, I know more.
Yeah.
Molly and I toured the woolen mill there many years ago.
Really?
Yeah, they woolen mill processing. Sure will.
That is since when I was there in 70.
Oh, no, it's much different. than that.
72,
Yeah.
and it was a little Spanish speaking town.
Florida is you know, what you miss.
Yeah. Oh, that's so funny that you even know that.
I spent, I'm
It looks like a retiree that I
Yes, oh my God.
I'm finally able to fulfill my childhood dream.
Oh,
So I spent
Martin doing
very well, very well.
Yeah, you brought Molly with you somewhere?
She is coming.
Well, no, Roxy is.
She's back there. She's somebody else.
One of us is gonna get.
Hi, Miss Boo.
Hello, madam.
Oh, you.
Good to see you.
It was more than
I know, right?
Well, maybe we should have.
No,
You get my email.
I got, yeah, I know. It was like-
No, he came with me. I got the ball. I just like the song.
You could. It's middle.
Kids.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
I look forward to that.
Love it.
Yeah.
What did they do with
You did have two.
We had so much fun.
That's right. That's right. That's
Yeah.
Were you sitting here? No, you're on the mic.
Thank you.
No,
I swear to you.
Jackie.
Maybe I better move over to the other side.
So what are you doing?
So I've been playing with watercolor.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. I know we're running a little late, but we are waiting for the remainder of our panelists. So, can everybody hear me? Some people are talking in the front. Oh, well.
How are you?
We're just waiting for the remainder of the panel to show up, so we'll get started when they're all here.
Good. Yeah, old black and white photographs, you don't see that many around anymore. I probably have some more somewhere, and they'll go straight to you.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I assumed everybody knows each other. Yeah. I'll take it tomorrow.
Wow, that's good.
I have a notebook like this. I remember that. Oh, is it, wait a little bit. I got Molly. Hello. Stop working. Welcome, everybody. I think it's time to get started. I'm going to introduce the panel, and then we'll give a presentation, and afterwards, we'll open it up for you all to share what your experiences have been with Lida. Am I talking loud enough? Can everybody hear? Okay. Our first distinguished, let's see, I'll go in order. There's Felice. Okay. Felice Sachs. Well, first of all, there's Bette. She and I are moderating this together, Bette Levy. We're both took Lida's class for many years. So Felice Sachs, after moving to Louisville from her native Chicago, Felice studied weaving with Alma Lesh. Years later, this connection led to her going to U of L and taking Lida's surface design classes. Felice worked as a registered nurse with an MS in maternal child nursing. After retiring, she earned an MA with Lida in fiber art in 2003. Her thesis was titled In Sickness and in Health. She makes 2D textile work as well as functional pieces using fiber techniques. Her work includes reusing and repurposing clothing, especially from loved ones who have died, into such things as blankets and wall hangings. And helping people, frequently women, to make prayer shawls called talit, worn at Jewish religious services. Currently, there's an exhibit of some of her work at the U of L Ekstrom Library in the third floor of the Yarmouth Study Room. Then next we have Molly Elkind. Molly earned an MA in studio art from the Alan R. Hite Art Institute at U of L in 2002, with a focus in fiber. Exhibition highlights include 2 solo exhibits in Atlanta and numerous juried and invitational shows nationwide since '96. Molly has been published in a number of fiber art-related publications, and her work is in several private collections. After focusing on tapestry weaving for 14 years, Molly's recent work explores weaving with paper and mixed media that includes painted and found images, thread, and natural elements, including dried plants. Weaving offers a language with endless expressive possibilities, and Molly continues to be fascinated by experiments in combining image with pattern in a kind of woven collage. Molly's also passionate about teaching art with a particular focus on design principles, processes, and methods of critique. She's based in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and teaches both online and in person for fiber guilds and conferences. Very distinguished people here. Okay, next we have Martin Rollins. Martin is an artist educator who has designed, facilitated, and collaborated in arts programs with the Kentucky Center for Performing Arts, Kentucky Educational Television, the University of Louisville, and other educational venues. He has served on the visual arts faculty at the Kentucky Governor's School for the Arts and is an associate education curator at the Speed Art Museum. Martin received his Bachelor of Fine Arts from the Louisville School of Art in Anchorage and his Master in Fine Arts from the University of Cincinnati. While Rollins' artwork has been exhibited locally, regionally, and nationally, he is at heart still the kid who drew and colored his way through childhood and beyond. His work is known for its color and the expressive qualities he brings to images of the moods and qualities he finds in the streets and the fields at different times of the year. And last but not least, we have Beth Torstrick Ward. Beth grew up in Louisville amidst a close-knit, extended family, and in the 80s and early 90s in the cultural arts scene. During high school and college, she had a small business making and selling hand-painted silk scarves and jewelry at regional art fairs. And as a, how do you pronounce it, Kennedy?
Oh, yeah.
Kennedy
Lynn.
Okay, Kennedy Lynn Hendershot Scholarship recipient. Beth received a BFA in fiber art from U of L under Lida. After graduating, she moved to New York City for a few months to check it out. That few months turned into 28 years living in New York City, founding multiple businesses, and having experiences she never could have imagined. Her current passions are seeking work-life integration, developing a direct-to-consumer brand with a social business mission, and liaising between Governor's School for the Arts and the Kentuckians of New York groups. And you'll have to talk to her later about what that means. It's fascinating. So we will get started with Felice. Okay. Hi. I have a feeling I might feel better if I just put this up here. Okay, well, anyway, I'll try. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. So thinking about Lida, which I do more than just coming to this panel, it got me thinking about when I first met her and trying to think about what the whole process of learning to be a maker was like. And Lida was definitely part of all of it. It still is in my mind. First of all, I started taking art history classes at U of L because I loved seeing things all the time at art museums and never had an art history class. So I started there. And at some point, that was 1994. At some point, 94, 95, I had a project because I was always working with my hands. And my mother would say, you have a little pile next to your bed all the time, things like that. So I was working on a project for a friend, and I was making a bag that was to hold a prayer shawl that at that point I had not made any prayer shawls. But it was just a bag, like if you picture an envelope kind of bag. And I wanted to write 2 lines of prayer on it. And I just didn't know what to do. And I don't know how I heard of Lida, but I was at U of L, and maybe even Bette or Denise or somebody might have said something about Lida. So I, unannounced, went to the time that Lida's class was going to begin one afternoon with my little project and my questions. And she kind of was, I don't know, it's like, who are you and why are you here? And that kind of look. And so I told her what I was asking for. I don't know how to put these words on this piece of fabric. And can you help me? Can you tell me what to do? And then very quickly after that, class was starting. And that looked kind of interesting, to see the class coming in. Everybody was kind of energetic and going around the tables and everything. And she had her focus had to be on the class. So I just stood there, and she hadn't really answered me, so I just stood there, and then she came back to me once or twice, and I guess I was waiting for her, not knowing her, but she's the teacher, she's this teacher of fiber art. I wanted an answer that I could just use, but she finally just said, just
write it on and stitch it on, I think is what she said. Just write the word, the letters, and just stitch it on. So that's what I did, and that was my introduction, awkwardly, to Lida. So not too long after that, I think I probably signed up for fiber art classes within the next 6 months or so. I find, and as I look around at the work, that Lida was a master of the minimal in her teaching, and you can see it in her art. When we had assignments, as many of you here, we had assignments, and in Lida's class there was an opening kind of introduction to fiber art with several what she called exercises. They were all about doing things to fabric, maybe cutting holes in it and stitching it, or making some designs on it, or whatever. But so she gave us the assignment. She would, present the assignment, and she'd give basic information, maybe to demonstrate a technique or two, and then she just freely consulted with people. It was like, I felt like that's how things got carried to you as an individual. And I saw that as a minimal kind of way of teaching too. When she was consulting, I always felt that it was very personal. She made it, me and you, we're going to have this conversation. And she wasn't necessarily telling you what to do, but helping you kind of figure it out. I'd never really seen her work, and I was in her class most of the time for about 11 years. And it's not that I was a slow student, but I just couldn't get away. I couldn't give it up. So I hadn't really seen her art, and I don't know if I asked her or if I saw something, and somehow the conversation came about. I think she said to me that she doesn't like to bring her art in because she doesn't want students to think this is the way you should do it. That this is her way, this is her art. You have your way. You'll develop your own art. And that was just very interesting. She didn't want it to be competition, and she didn't want it to maybe even be inspiration, because you figure out what's you, and and she has what's her. I kind of think about some simple things. I have to laugh myself about them. Some words to live by, according to Lida. When you started out in the class and you made some samples and maybe some idea you had, maybe drew it or painted it or stitched it or whatever, there were small samples. She'd talk to you about it, and then she'd say, okay, now go make 11 or 10 or 11 or 12 more samples. That sampling was, Lida's like, I don't know, it was her thing. And I think some of us, sometimes we're in a group, and somebody will say, well, I can't quite figure out what I want. And we'll say, just make a bunch of samples. The other thing is, if work is going to be hung on the wall when it's finished, you should always look at it on the wall as you're thinking about it. Oh, you want to see it where it's going to be. It's not going to be flat on the table, so hang it on the wall. And that's how, that's what we had, a wonderful, huge amount of space on the wall in the studio. And then 3 visually is better than 2. Just think about that for a second. And the other thing was, at some critique, maybe more than once, she said, I know if you've got a lot of like glittery stuff on your piece, I know that you've been up all night and trying to finish it, but then you didn't know what else to do, so you just she was disciplined in a lot of ways, but she always was just very open and accessible in many ways. There were strict things about some of the procedures in the studio, and it had to do with Lida's concern for her health and your health, like to not mix powder dyes out in the open somewhere. I don't know, she constructed the box, remember, where you put your hands in and the powder dye was inside the box, and you did your mixing inside a box, maybe even wearing a mask and gloves. So she was concerned about health kind of issues, and just what she had from U of L was what she had. You know, the old tables, the big old tables, don't ever try and move them. Always be careful, like if you're doing something messy on a table or on one of the counters, make sure you clean it off because someone else is going to put their work on that counter and on that space. And you don't want your bleach or your paint or whatever to get on someone else's work because it could ruin it. So that was kind of, you know, those kind of things were kind of interesting. She was disciplined in that way, and she cared about what she had in the studio, which, you know, was some of it was old, like old tables. So I was very shocked, and when we were making paper, that, you know, usually nothing got too much on the floor, you cleaned up the floor, but in making paper, there was one part of the process where after you pulled pieces of paper and then they were drying a little bit, there'd be a stack of paper and there's this one machine. I don't know, I can't see something in the room that was about the same size, but maybe a machine that stood about this high. And it was for really seriously pressing the water out, liquid in the water out of the paper. Well, given Lida's proclivity for kind of neatness and orderliness, this was the only tool in the whole room where when you put it, it was electrical, so you know it would create pressure, extreme amount of pressure, and the water would just pour out all over the floor. There wasn't going anyplace else. It was going all over the floor, and it's sort of like it was funny and shocking that could happen in that studio. I like Lida. I could say I loved Lida, and I felt the studio with Lida and our classmates was generally a very happy place, happy and capital place. The midterm and the final critiques could be edgy. Every semester there were 2 critiques, and because you had to present your work and you had to hear what your classmates were going to say about it, and then you would hear what Lida had to say about it. But she always let the students go first, and then she gave her summary of her reactions. And she would do it in a very encouraging and non-judgmental way. That was really a nice quality. But the other part of being in Lida's class was that it was very social, and we got together and stitched or did whatever else we're doing in groups around tables, around counters and things like that. So the critiques became an opportunity. I assume this was Lida's decision. They became an opportunity for potlucks. So every critique was preceded by a potluck. They were always in the evening, I think, for my class. So maybe it was for lunch too. And that was, I don't know, I think Lida had a really good sense of humor. Maybe it was guided by all her years of teaching and having to deal with all our different personalities. I think you have to have a sense of humor to be able to deal with lots of different people, particularly creative people. And she did that really well. In the private consults, which were in her spacious office, which barely could fit 2 chairs in it to come for 2 people to sit, it made me feel special, and because there was a casualness about it, but a seriousness about it, and it was more like 2 friends having a nice conversation, serious and sort of pointed at something that you know obviously you're working on something, but it always felt really good, I thought. And there's no question that to me Lida was an important part of my learning and becoming a maker of things. She was a mentor, a teacher, and a friend, and my life has definitely been enriched by being her student. I feel Lida is with me, and she's in my mind, my heart, and in everything I create and everything I attempt to do. Thank you, Lida.
Wow. Some of what I'm going to say is very much along the same lines, of course, because Felice and I were in class together for several years, and And so I remember, this is going to be kind of in a random order because you've reminded me of things, and I'm afraid I'll forget. No glitter. Remember? Like, you did not bring glitter into that studio, and the beads were somewhat questionable as well. But on a more serious level, though, I think that was a good lesson in don't go for the easy, glitzy solution. You know, if glitter is starting to look like the right solution because you don't know what else to do, take a big step back and keep thinking. So now I'm going to back up and start with my original introduction, which is also a kind of an awkward first meeting story in a different way. So when I first met Lida, I was an English teacher with a serious quilt making hobby. And I thought I was at the advanced age of 35, and I thought, oh, it's so late to start with something like this. I had so much to learn. So I wanted to find a shortcut to figuring out questions about design and color and composition. And so I thought, and some of you remember Mary Zena. She came and spoke to our quilt guild and was raving about Lida's fiber classes. Aha, professional help, this would be good. So I took myself over there with my first quilt that I had designed by myself. I was very proud of it. And I showed it to her, and she was very kind, and she looked with her usual kind of focused, generous attention. Didn't say anything for a while, it was nerve-wracking. And then and I apologize to those of you who've heard this story before, but that's such a great question. She said, do you ever use non-commercial fabric? And I was like, what is that? What is non-commercial fabric? I thought all fabric came from the fabric store. And so that was the beginning of my education in approaching what I had seen as materials that you were given and methods that you were given that you accepted without question and used in the same way that everyone before you had used, more or less. She taught us, I think, to take those same fibrous materials, fabric or yarn or whatever, and look at them as just another kind of art material. What are you going to do with this? How are you going to change it, transform it, etc.? That first assignment was to take canvas and to transform it in 6 different ways. Puncture it, stitch it by machine, stitch it by hand, make it in patchwork. I mean, I can't remember all the ways. But we couldn't, I think we could paint on it once. It wasn't about color. It was about transforming that fabric. So the other thing, and you touched on this too, the other thing that made a huge impact on me and still is the method that I follow when I'm working on my own work is the method of working. She would present an assignment, and the first step was always to go to the library and research first. And I loved that, because I felt like, okay, this gives me at least a starting point. I know what some people have done with samplers or whatever it might be. It gives me somewhere to frame my ideas to start. And then we had to do a bunch of sketches, like a dozen or more, which was painful. And then, for me, and then we had to show the sketches to her, and she'd say, try a few of these, in samples. And we had to make like half a dozen samples at least. And then we have another conference, and we talk about, okay, which of these samples shows promise for developing into a final piece? There was no going from 0 to final piece in one step. And I kind of liked that because it felt like safer somehow. And that's the method I teach a lot, is to just, slow down, think about it, do another sample. Sampling is my religion, I say, and I get pushback on it, but that's okay. The other funny story, I think, I went in thinking I want help making better quilts. And Lida said, oh, but you're an English teacher. You were an English major. You obviously like words and books and things. You're going to make paper. And, she was a force. She didn't say no. She said, okay, I'll make paper. But which was a fantastic thing for me to do because it really pushed me outside of my comfort zone of fabric and stitching and so forth and into a whole new medium where I had to start from the ground up learning what it could do. and learning how paper is a kind of fabric, actually. I never thought of it like that. So I think, and I wonder if that's actually why she got that paper making equipment, was that she knew people would come in without any preconceived notions about what they could do with it, the way that many of us come in with preconceived notions about yarn and thread and fabric and so on. So very clever. And then the last thing I want to say is that you mentioned this too, the quality of Lida's attention to you and your work was just so deep and thoughtful and 100% on. You know, she wasn't distracted. If she was looking at your work, she was looking at your work. And this extended even past the time where I graduated, we moved to Atlanta, and we weren't really in close touch, but she got back in touch and said, I'm selling looms. Do you want one? And I was like, yeah, I always wanted to learn to do tapestry. Yes, I'll come get one. And so I did with some friends who had a truck, and we came up and we had dinner with Lida and Peter, and I brought some of the work I had been doing at the time, which was beaded, art quilty kinds of things. And I will never forget, she sat with this small piece in her lap and she just kind of smiled down at it and just gave it that beautiful 100% attention. And I thought, wow. I didn't expect that, you know, because it was beads. So anyway, I think that's what I'll carry forth the most, is that kind of caring that never stopped, that attention and that dedication to the potential of this medium. So, thanks. Oh, she's got one.
Thank you. You know, my time with Lida as a student is from a long time ago. I think Jimmy Carter hadn't been inaugurated yet. But it was when she first came from IU to the Louisville School of Art, and she came to the art school where there was already an established textile program, as it was known then, and with Alma Lesh there. And so she was, I think, the only two-person department when she came to the Louisville School of Art. And I think that everything Felice and Molly have said is true in terms of the processes that she used when she was teaching. She had both Alma and Lida, and I would say that in many regards they were similar in that they were not encouraging a particular approach or trying to put you into one direction or what they thought was right. They were open and they listened. But I think that Alma was probably at that point in her life too, was so established in the craft tradition with fibers and textiles, whereas Lida was very much fiber textiles within fine arts. She was very patient. She was open. And I remember many times that we would experiment in away from traditional yarn or fabric even. I'm thinking of some of the processes that I used on my own work. And one of the things with altering the surface was, I remember scorching with the iron and using fire on the fabric, and dipping materials into hot wax to kind of the Eva Hess perspective, where she was just so open to all of those things, and she was supportive. She was very professional, and I think for all the teachers there, and the same for the U of L program, where you go from high school art program and you go into an art school or university art program, and you're working with professional artists. And the way that Lida saw herself and her own work and the kinds of standards she held herself to professionally were there for us as well. So again, one of the quotes that is in the catalog there, where Lida was talking with Maggie Malloy for an article in 1991 Fiber Arts, was, I think to paraphrase Lida, I may use the materials of the painter and the sculptor, but my sensibilities are that of a fiber artist. And so for someone such as myself, who did not then go more totally into the fiber field, that's a way that I identify with her in my own work professionally.
So it is such a privilege to be here, and I'm going to echo much of what has been said in my own way. I got to meet Lida, who was just larger than life to me when I was 20. So right after high school, I'm sure I did foundation classes and then found my way to fiber. And it's interesting because I don't relate, I don't think of my own personal art so much when I think of Lida as much as my life. And, you know, I am thinking of the embroideries and some last minute conceptual projects I did that really I thought I'd slammed together, and Lida kind of stopped me and was like, oh, there's something there. And she really pushed the conceptual in a way that I hadn't been exposed to. And she encouraged my summer trips, you know, to go out to San Francisco when there would be a fiber art conference, you know, when I was 22, and go to Pinland and Aramont and come back, and we would compare notes about, you know, new techniques. It was always in sort of the context of life. I think I learned a lot of critical thinking. And even this, oh God, I get emotional. Even this room, I can feel her. You know, she created the space, and it wasn't just her. She met us where we were and helped us meet each other. And I think that if hearing all you talk, I think that's what I really have tried to do in my life and businesses. So people, I own a private label jewelry company, and we produce, talk about glitter, Lida would not be happy. I mean, I would only bring Lida the really unique pieces we would make with hill tribe families in northern Thailand. Would not show her the China stuff. But, oh my God, my train of thought. What was I? But so I would do the designing at the beginning, but then we produced for a lot of the vertical specialty fashion retailers, and people say, so are you doing the designing? And I say, honestly, I put all my creativity into our new business development and our team development and sales. And I have to say to people, you know, my definition of sales is creating a creative solution for everyone involved. And I feel like that's what Lida did in her classroom. And so, of course, I am all about product. I get way too into the design team's world because I love the process, and I'm most interested about taking two techniques and putting them together. And really, I feel like Lida taught me and all of us innovation and appreciation, because in my classes, everyone was doing such different things that were really true to themselves. Even if you didn't know why at the moment, I feel like she encouraged you to go deeper. And I think that that's an approach to life that, you know, can happen with your kids, with your business, you know, hopefully with ourselves. And I think about Lida all the time. I'm constantly like, oh my God, oh, I can't text her, but she sees it. So I'm so happy that we're all here together to carry her forward. And I wanted to hear, I'm a little obsessed with the Little School of Art. I love it when those stories come up, so I can't wait to hear everything. So, thank you.
Thank you so much, the four of you. We are also going to have the opportunity for students of Lida's or friends or teachers of Lida to speak to the assembled body here. I just want to make one personal comment, which is that one word that I don't think anyone said, may have implied, but I don't think said, which is the word tactful. She taught me the phrase, "Would you consider?" which I have used in critiquing other people's work or in my personal relationships. And I would encourage all of you to try that out because it's wonderful. At any rate, at this point, I would like to invite anybody to come up and have some brief comments about their relationship with Lida. Please to use the microphone unless you've got a really loud voice. First person, Jackie Parsley.
The one thing Lida, I remember, she taught me is I'd like to see more. That's what she said every time I wrote something. I want to see more. But she was a wonderful teacher. I'm very proud that she asked me to teach for her 2 times. Once she was on sabbatical and once she was taking care of her mother. And of course, just like a lot of people out here, she was our teacher and then she became a friend. She was just so warm and concerned and I couldn't ask for more. Having Alma and Lida and then Arturo Sandoval, I had the 3 top people in fiber, and I just feel lucky that. And going to Louisville School of Art, it was magical. I mean, anybody that went there, it was from a different time. It was in the 70s, and it took me about 10 years to get out of there because I had other responsibilities, but. It was just a great experience, and I love Lida too.
Okay, who's next? Judy.
I don't want to get on the picture. I met Lida in, I guess, 2021 when I decided I would go back to school. I got my degree in social work from University of Kentucky, but I was an art major. But when I transferred there, to be an art major, I would have had to stay in school another year, which I wanted out. So I took social work because I didn't have to take a foreign language. So I went back to school and I did 2D with Lida. I'd already had 2D. But anyway, I sat right by her in the classroom, which she thought that was really amusing. And she started talking to me about fiber art, and I'd never heard of it. What was fiber art? And she said, I want you to come to this class. Well, I did, and oh my gosh, she just opened my eyes just so much to paper making, to stitching, to everything. But my primary focus was beading. She brought Collis Marshall in, which led me, because when I thought of beads, I always thought of just stringing stuff. And when I saw the wacky stuff that Collis did, I was like, yes, I want to do that. So that's when I started really getting into beading, and I started beading environments on rocks. And Lida would go to Maine, and she would bring me back these wonderful rocks to bead. She always encouraged me. I was her teacher's assistant for a few years with her. And I can truly say Lida loved me unconditional because I never really did what she wanted me to do. She always wanted me to wear gloves, which, you know, as soon as she went in her office, those gloves came off. And then she wanted me to wear a mask, and I didn't want to do that. She was always so concerned about me, and she was concerned about my family, and she just was a wonderful person, and I miss her a lot. And I'm so glad that you all are back and here talking about her, and I'm gonna shut up now because I'm gonna cry.
Gwen Kelly, would you consider speaking?
Oh.
No? Okay. Trish? I don't know how far this.
No, I'm loud. I'm the teacher voice.
Okay.
Well, my introduction wasn't quite so uncomfortable because I was at U of L for my education degree. And Barbara gave me a lovely introduction. So that wasn't a thing. But really, besides, like you all know, like it was just a power without being pushy. And the gloves thing was wonderful because I was a forever student and I was teaching high school and introduced Kevin to Lida because we would have to do professional development, whatever. So I was always, we're going to Lida's fiber class. And I would come in after teaching fibers in my high school program with indigo dyed hands, and she would lay into me about how irresponsible I was as a teacher not to have my hands gloved. But you know, I had OSHA requirements and warnings all over my fiber studio, and I learned so much from her about health and that wait time and the connection between Lida and myself and my work. She was just a force, you all know. She changed me, so for the best.
Marilyn?
You light up.
You got this.
When I think about Lida's department, her classes, it feels like a warm hug. I can't ever remember a time that it wasn't nurturing, that there wasn't a positive feeling that whatever you were doing, even if she tried to steer you to another direction, it was from the heart and it was positive. Some of my, well, I would say the majority of my most enduring friendships in my life, the people that mean the most to me, came out of my association from being in Lida's, under Lida's umbrella. And when I look out here, I want to see some of the people that are with us, like Mary Singh and Glenn Kress and Carlos, and so many people that she influenced and created wonderful things. So I'm going to pass it on because I'm going to blub.
Would you like to say a few words? So I started with Lida and Alma at the Old Bowl School of Art when I took my kid to the classes in a baby carrier, the kind that are illegal now. And I had been embroidering since I was a little girl, because that's what my grandmother taught me to do. And I just connected with them and with the work. And so I kept taking classes. I took classes there and Lida was along, and then I took classes at U of L. So 70s, in about 1986, Lida said, "Luckett, you got enough classwork already to get a master's. So why don't you do the other work and actually get one?" Okay. And I did. So I finished up my master's in '94. And so many of the people in this room were part of those classes and part of this whole community of fiber artists and all artists who have been influenced by her, and yet we can't tell that we were all students of hers because none of our work looks like anybody else's. And I think that speaks to me to a real gifted teacher, that she could be self-effacing enough that she didn't want us to be like her. And that's a real hero. So I'm touched to be here and touched to see all of you. And I really appreciate being a part of this community. Thanks, Dave.
Or Dennis?
Yes. I wanted to touch on something that Beth had brought up in Maryland. I had come back from New York and had inadvertently cut my finger off and wasn't sure what I could do and what I couldn't do. And still was getting used to meeting people in Louisville again, reconnecting after 7 years. And I finally went, what is with this Lida Gordon? Every interesting woman I know is taking a class with Lida Gordon. So I go down there to take a class with Lida Gordon, only to find out it's not a class in fiber, it's a class in becoming. And that's why everybody's emotional about remembering her, because anybody that can transform you, it's a deeper kind of fiber. And it just was so fortunate. And the other thing I wanted to say, so fortunate for me to find everybody, and they're still some of my best friends, just the people that I met in that class and reconnected with, and her ability to listen. We've all talked about that profound quality of her ability to see you and hear you and pay attention to you. It was a safe place to make art. So I kind of found some footing there. But it also, the curiosity factor. You never knew what anybody else was doing. Nobody was doing the same thing. And there was one person in our class who was from China. She barely spoke English, so you couldn't really engage her in a conversation about what she was doing and making. And it was so odd. And we would go, what do you think she's making? We had many conversations about what we thought she was making. Well, at the end, when we did the final critique, she in China did runways. She did runway hats. And so she was making a hat for, as if she was doing it for runway. It was fabulous and it was amazing. And none of us had any clue that's what she was doing. She's married to Dr. Schumacher, Steve. Is it Steve Schumacher, the alternative doctor? I can't think. Well, at any rate, it was amazing. It was astonishing, and I owe her so much, and I too love her so much.
I'm wondering if there are some of her students that perhaps I don't recognize. Any of you unfamiliar faces who may have taken a class with Lida? Debbie?
I have one thing I want to say.
Hi, Molly.
This is a familiar face, though.
I did take a couple of classes with Lida. It was my first intro into any kind of art, really, other than high school. And what I was going to say when you all were talking is that she did pay attention to everyone, even those of us who felt like we really didn't have much, some creativity, but not a lot of talent like a lot of people have. So she made you feel like you were important. and what you did was important. I'll never forget that. And I remember the critiques and being so afraid and nervous, in front of everybody. And she always made me feel comfortable. And she always made you feel like it was great. And just like you all, everything you said was so true about the samples. And the first day at the library, I didn't like the library personally. I was like, let's get going, let's make something, And but it was always, we knew we were gonna go to the library and look around, and it was helpful. But I just wanna say I love Lida, and I just thank her for helping me become creative and make such good friends, and I consider all of you all my people and community. Thank you.
Rebecca, I saw you first. You will talk. I have some of these vessels. She gave them to me for a wedding present. And it echoes that we are all vessels, filled, in this room anyway, with essences of Lida. I would not know my children's godparents if Lida Gordon hadn't been here. I was like Mary. Anyway, School of Art, I was making stories. I like stories, and I like costumes and fabric, and I knew Deborah Green, and I'd come from University of Kentucky by way of New York City and all over the place. So anyway, I come here, and we go out to School of Art to create, did one on Peter, and these were fascinating people, and you could probably not imagine that I was shy in those days, but I was. And I was the one who kept all the records and collated things. So I started noticing all these people I wanted to know. And then here they are. But also, when I wanted to know how to do this dyeing, because I always had dancing and theater and costumes, even though Deborah Green had taught basket making. I took underwater basket weaving at UK. What I'm trying to say is, I had a baby, and that was the most creative thing I'd ever done. And Denise and I had done a jams project. And she had all this stuff that this woman, Lida Gordon, I just kept hearing her name. And then I knew Peter, and maybe, I can't remember if I'd met Lida. But the truth is, I wanted to know her, Mary Zena, and all of y'all. So I had been falling in love with 5 rhythms. Oddly enough, it all connected to everything. But I learned how to write a grant. I was really intimidated by Sally Bingham. I'd met her before, but I decided to invite her to lunch because my husband had said, when I wanted to write a grant to go back to U of L, he said we didn't have enough money for me to take a class and learn something and to afford the tuition and I said, well, there's this new thing, the Kentucky Foundation for Women. I'll write a grant. And he said, no one will give you any money for childcare. That's a woman's place to do on her own. And I said, that's crazy. I've met Shirley Chisholm. Yeah. So anyway, what I'm trying to say, Patty Fox, immigrant stories, dyeing techniques, our dyeing day. Oh my God, menstrual blood. And without Lida, I would have never attached spoons to corsets. And things like that. And I got the grant. I wrote the grant. I got one of the first grants because Sally said, I can't tell you what will go or not, but I will tell you that childcare to return to school is definitely a woman's issue. Do well with reception. Maggie. Maggie.
This will be very brief. I wasn't really a student of Lida's, as so many of you are. I admired her and I kept hearing about her, and I knew so many people that take her classes and I admired their art. So I took one semester with Lida, and I was doing collage work, and so she encouraged me just to continue doing the work that I was. And I didn't, she was just wonderful and encouraging so much. And then my mother-in-law died, who lived in Michigan. And we had to go there, and it ended up taking up about 3 weeks of the time that I was in this class. And I thought, this is just, I'll go back. She's very, very nice about me taking the time off. And I think it even went beyond the semester. And and she worked with me on the collage, and I understand what all of you are saying about being with her, because from that one experience, she's very patient and encouraging. And I finished this collage and turned it in, and the semester was over, and a few weeks later, I got something in the mail from U of L, and she had given me an A. And I was just shocked. I really didn't feel I didn't really even know that I would be graded, but I just thought it was so generous of her, and it was so encouraging. And I knew her, as a friend as well, and it's a terrible loss to our community that she's gone. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jenna Richards. I recognize some familiar faces from Lida's class. I was a student of hers from 2010 to 2013. And I met her when I was 20, just out of high school, basically. And I actually had forgotten a lot of these details until until you were speaking, and it was like you were telling a story from my own brain, which was wild. But she really instilled in me a sense of belonging and community that I'm still always seeking. Spaces like the Loom House and Penland and Haystack were all places that she introduced me to, and that I still continue to be involved in, as well as the local community too, of course. But the no glitter thing, that was the other thing. Who said that? I forgot. You said that. I totally forgot that, and it is incredibly ironic in my life now. So it just makes me laugh. But I'll end with one funny story. She was always having me work with wacky materials, she had me weave raffia, and I really wanted to felt. So one day she came over to me and she was like, Jenna, I've got something for you. And I was like, okay. And then she just flops this thing down on the table, kind of dramatically. And it was the rectangle from the dryer lint. And she was like, start with that. And I was like, what? But she was always having me work with something wacky, reused, and that reusable stuff, and that still is in my work. So, but yeah, it made me laugh when I thought about it this morning, thinking about coming here. So, thank you.
We are very blessed to have Peter Bodner here, and I wonder if you would like to make a few remarks, or not.
I think I probably should say it from the next John and I's show and tell. I have been going through letters, stuff, and mostly from Lida's childhood and college years, and letters to her folks, or folks to her. And so I'm finding out about her boyfriend from the work. And, how she wanted some batteries so she could use her radio.
Peter, would you like to use the microphone?
Life is good. I'm having a hard time in my art class. It's really portraits and terrible. Anyway, so it's wonderful and touching. Of course, it's a huge obligation, which we all have to kind of learn our history in reverse. Finding out about someone that we loved before you came along. And so it's like origin stories, you know. We're all talking about the superhero now, but I know that there was a time before she was a superhero, and various people. I mean, some of her, she was kind of excited about going and shooting trap. She wanted to go there. So anyway, we all live a long, tortuous journey to where we wind up. We all have to enjoy it as much as we can. Thank you. I mean, this is a wonderful day.
Thank you, Peter. We love you. And we all miss Lida.
Can I come?
I'm sorry, our time is up. This is John Begley.
I wasn't a student.
This is John Begley, who organized this show along with Jessica, who is in the back. Please do make some comments.
Well, the way I knew Lida.
Use the mic.
Use the mic. Okay.
What about this?
Whatever. A lot of people who came to this show said, well, I didn't know Lida did that. I didn't know she was doing those things. And that's the way I knew Lida. Because I did a show of Lida's, Peter, at New Harmony in 1980. So I sort of had watched her career for 20 years before I got to U of L. And then I kept meeting all of you who were going, and then I go down to the fiber studio and go, well, they're having a really good time in the fiber studio. So I'm really glad we're doing this. It gives me great pleasure, and I hope all of you too.
Thank you.
Well, that concludes the formal part of this assembly. So I hope that you will take the time to look around, look at some of Lida's work. There are refreshments outside. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.